In 2025, a quiet but significant shift is taking place worldwide. Countries that once eagerly hired Filipinos are tightening their borders and labor markets. For example, Bahrain's parliament recently passed a law capping foreign work permits to prioritize Bahraini citizens. Similar trends are unfolding from the Gulf to Asia, driven by rising unemployment, nationalization goals, and security concerns. Even the Philippine Labor Department has issued advisories warning against sending workers to hotspots like Israel, Iran, Lebanon, and Jordan. These changes send shockwaves through Filipino families. Mothers in Manila anxiously wait for remittances, while overseas workers confront sudden uncertainty. For generations, OFWs were hailed as modern-day heroes, building the nation from afar. Now that narrative is under strain, as new policies force many to rethink their future plans. In this countdown, we explore the 12 nations whose 2023 to 2025 policy shifts have effectively closed the door on Filipino workers, examining both the rules and the human stories behind them. Number 12. Oman. Oman's new labor law drives strict Omanization. Under its rules, if a qualified Omani national is available, a foreign worker can be replaced. Companies with 25 or more employees must now set hiring and training plans for Omanis, effectively reserving positions for citizens. The rationale is clear. Officials want more Omanis employed and less reliance on expatriates. But for Filipinos, this change is unsettling. Maria, a nurse, has spent 10 years in Muscat, sending money home to her family. Now she lives in constant fear that an Omani colleague might take her job. Migrant groups warn these quotas could lead to layoffs of veteran foreign workers. Critics note, even engineers and managers who plan to stay must now consider returning home. Many expats in Oman report that agencies and the Philippine consulate are fielding more questions about contract security. Oman's approach protects local jobs, but forces families to ask, can the nation secure more national jobs without leaving its foreign workforce stranded? Number 11. Bahrain. Bahrain's parliament recently capped foreign work permits to boost jobs for its citizens. The government reports unemployment had spiked to 5.4% after the pandemic, so they are reshaping the workforce with Bahrainization. In practice, companies are now tending to lay off non-Bahraini employees in jobs that can be filled by citizens. For context, over 600,000 foreigners, including many Filipinos, work in Bahrain's private sector, compared to about 100,000 Bahraini nationals. The impact was immediate. Filipinos in construction, healthcare, and services suddenly found their positions reserved for locals. For example, a Filipina construction engineer who had led projects for years was told her role would now be assigned to Bahraini graduates. Rosana, a domestic helper of 8 years, reported that her agency stopped giving her new contracts. "They said my service is needed for a Bahraini household," she said, tears in her eyes. These measures aim to protect Bahraini workers, but they have also uprooted Filipino families who depend on those overseas salaries. Viewers might wonder, if each country puts citizens first, who will look after the others we leave behind? Number 10. Qatar. In late 2024, Qatar enacted a sweeping Qatarization law to strengthen its local workforce. Law number 12, 2024 requires private firms to ensure a set percentage of each workforce is Qatari. Violating companies face heavy fines, so employers are now scrambling to meet quotas. Doha's goal is to diversify the economy and reduce reliance on foreign labor by training nationals for private sector jobs. But for Filipinos, this reform was abrupt. Some Doha businesses began advertising that new vacancies were Qataris only, effectively closing doors on Filipino applicants. At one construction firm, a Filipina project manager discovered her position had been reclassified to require a Qatari employee. Another Filipina mother lost a school teaching job because it was now only for a national. These citizens-first policies may stabilize local employment, but many Filipino families are shaken. One husband and wife team of nurses are now debating returning home, unsure if they'll find work elsewhere. Qatar's new law underscores attention. Can a country build a national workforce without breaking the bonds of those who have long contributed? Number 9. United Arab Emirates. The UAE has aggressively promoted Emiratization. Since 2023, companies with 50 or more skilled employees must ensure that at least 4% of their workforce are Emirati nationals. By 2024, over 131,000 Emiratis were employed in the private sector, well above the country's original targets. These quotas and incentives mean many expat roles, including those held by Filipinos, are now off-limits. For example, medical centers in Dubai report giving promotion priority to Emirati doctors, and IT firms now advertise positions explicitly for UAE nationals. Hospitality groups say they're offering generous training programs to Emiratis at the expense of filling spots with foreigners. A Filipina nurse who has worked in Abu Dhabi for years lamented that even when she won awards for excellence, she was told leadership roles were being reserved for Emiratis. Meanwhile, Filipino families watch anxiously. With each policy change, the promise of remittances feels more tenuous. The UAE's experience raises a difficult question. How does a country empower its citizens without shutting out the very workers who helped build its modern economy? Number 8. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has recently tightened oversight of foreign domestic workers after high-profile abuse cases. In August 2024, Riyadh revoked the licenses of 2 Philippine recruitment agencies after 2 Filipina maids died under suspicious circumstances. These unprecedented sanctions signaled that Saudi authorities will hold agencies accountable for worker welfare. Under the new rules, Saudi families can hire Filipinos only through approved, government-vetted channels, and agencies face heavy penalties for violations. For many Filipinos, this change is distressing. Nurses and caregivers point out that Saudi households have long preferred Filipinas for their skills and reliability. Now, even those who've cleared health and background checks find their agencies under investigation. In Manila, returning OFWs expressed mixed feelings. One said, "It's good they catch the bad agencies, but we worry they'll just stop accepting us altogether." Indeed, some fear that misunderstandings about Filipinos have led to blanket measures that punish even honest workers. Saudi officials defend the reforms as necessary protection, but Filipino families see the other side: fewer available visas and more uncertainty. It highlights a painful trade-off. In seeking justice for victims, some innocent workers pay the price of added barriers. Number 7. Kuwait. After the 2023 murder of Filipina maid Jollibee Ranara, Kuwait and the Philippines implemented strict hiring rules. Kuwait initially suspended all visas for Filipino domestic workers, and when it resumed, it limited new hires to helpers with at least one prior contract. In effect, this bans all first-time maids. Kuwaiti officials say this protects households and deters illegal recruiters, but it left thousands of hopeful applicants devastated. In Manila's airports, heart-wrenching scenes unfolded. Young women clutching approved visas and air tickets were turned away at departure gates. Even Filipinos already working in Kuwait felt the effects. Some employers canceled new contracts, citing uncertainty over future restrictions. Back home, families that had banked on Kuwaiti salaries found their plans upended. One Filipina who had sold her furniture to raise travel funds collapsed when told she could not board her flight. These measures aim to ensure worker safety, but they have shuttered opportunities for hard-working households. After one tragic loss, many Filipinos feel as though the entire route to Kuwait has been closed off. Number 6. Lebanon. Lebanon was quietly added to Manila's no recruitment list in early 2025 amid regional strife. Escalating Palestinian-Israeli clashes along the southern border made conditions dangerous, even killing a Filipino nurse during an airstrike. Combined with Lebanon's own economic collapse and civil unrest, this prompted Manila to halt all new deployments. The ban hit many aspirants hard. Nurses, teachers, and engineers who had planned to go to Beirut suddenly had their visas canceled. One Filipina nurse who had prepared to start a new job in a Lebanese hospital found herself sitting at home, phone in hand, unable to reach anyone for answers. Another hoped-to-be teacher was left in limbo with no placement at all. For these workers, the decision severed a lifeline that supported families through remittances. It underscores a difficult dilemma. To protect some lives, others must forfeit their ambitions. In times of conflict, who should bear the risk? Number 5. Jordan. Even Jordan, which has remained relatively stable, was declared off-limits for Filipinos. In mid-2025, Manila issued a deployment ban, citing airspace closures and regional tensions. Although no fighting occurred in Jordan, flights were being rerouted amid wider Middle East conflicts. This abrupt decision blindsided many. Thousands had preparations already underway. For instance, Angelito, alias, had secured a 3-year hotel management contract in Oman and sold his motorcycle to pay fees. Days before his departure, the ban was announced and his flight was canceled. He returned to Manila heartbroken, calling his wife, "They just told me I cannot go." Similar stories came from Pasay and Cebu, where Filipinos had resigned from local jobs or wrapped up their affairs, only to learn they were stranded. Jordan's move highlights how geopolitical tensions can upend lives far beyond the conflict zone. Parents who thought they'd finally pay off debts suddenly face an uncertain job market at home. Number 4. Iran. In June 2025, the Philippines barred new hires to Iran. Rising tensions, including threats of conflict with Israel, made Tehran too unstable a posting. Even Filipinos who had lined up jobs found their visas revoked overnight. One caregiver, whom we'll call Maria, had prepared for months to teach at a school in Tehran. When she learned of the ban via a brief embassy message, she burst into tears. Her plans, finances, and hopes all shattered. A group of Filipino nurses in Isfahan reported that after 4 years of work, they suddenly received orders to go home immediately. A Philippine embassy official in Tehran noted that these workers felt betrayed and helpless after completing all requirements only to be rejected. As with Jordan, the logic was safety first, but for these workers, it felt like a door slamming in their faces. The abrupt change underscores a stark reality. Even careful life plans can be invalidated overnight, leaving families to pick up the pieces. Number 3. Israel. In October 2023, Hamas militants launched one of the deadliest attacks in Israeli history, killing civilians, including Filipina caregivers, in border communities. Manila responded by banning new OFW deployments to Israel. The tragedy was deeply personal. Among those killed were long-term Filipino houseworkers. Today, the rule is clear. No new helpers may go. Even as Israel rebuilds, Filipinos there know no fresh reinforcements will arrive. One middle-aged Filipina caregiver hid under her bed as gunfire roared, later recounting to GMA News how she prayed for her life. Another Filipino father in a northern kibbutz continues caring for his elderly employer, grateful to survive, while knowing his wife and children back in Cebu might never see him again. These stories remind us that when conflict strikes, even distant policies carry life and death weight. This photograph shows a Filipina caregiver with the Israeli boy she helped raise before the war. It embodies bonds torn apart by violence. Maritza, name changed, lived in this family's home for years and taught the child Tagalog. Now, separated by policy and geography, she relies on their letters and photos to feel close. Such images leave viewers reflecting. When politics and danger collide, how do we care for the vulnerable? Where do displaced workers find safety when their adopted homes suddenly seem unsafe? Number 2. South Korea. South Korea had piloted a program to bring in Filipino domestic helpers. In September 2024, Seoul launched a trial to hire 100 trained Filipina caregivers to ease a labor shortage. But in June 2025, a new government left that plan hanging. The Labor Ministry announced that expansion beyond the pilot is now uncertain. The abrupt flip-flop caught many hopeful migrants by surprise. Even worse, reports surfaced that 2 OFW participants were deported after complaining of severe exploitation. Their stories shocked families back home. Melissa, alias, who sold her family's jeepney to pay for placement fees, said she now feels betrayed. Her dream job vanished into bureaucracy. South Korea's experience shows how promising opportunities can vanish with political wins, and how it is the workers who suffer in the crossroads of policy. Number 1. United States. Finally, even the United States, a long-time destination for Filipino professionals, may be signaling a shift. Philippine analysts warn that any America First policy swing could cut opportunities for OFWs. One columnist noted that a return to protectionism would discourage outsourcing and tighten immigration limits, creating new barriers for Filipinos in the U.S. This could affect thousands of nurses, engineers, and domestic helpers who rely on U.S. visas. For example, a Filipino nurse in New York on an H-1B visa told us she now worries, "Will my work permit even be renewed under new rules?" The mere possibility of stricter limits has sent anxiety through Filipino-American communities. Even in a country known for immigration, this countdown reminds us that policy changes anywhere have personal consequences everywhere. These 12 stories share a common thread. Policies meant to protect a nation's workforce often send ripples through Filipino communities across the globe. Each rule change may make sense on paper, but to many it spells heartbreak, a parent staying away even longer, a family home at risk, children growing up by video call. We've seen parents hiding under beds in war zones, and students stranded at airports, all caught between two worlds. We encourage you to share your experiences and reflections in the comments below. Have these developments affected you or someone you know? Leave a comment, like, and share this video to spread awareness. Together, by keeping the conversation alive, we can support one another and help seek solutions, no matter how the borders shift.